You light our homes. Keep us warm.
You help us explore, innovate, and achieve the unthinkable.
You are everywhere.
Yet, sometimes out of reach.
You move us forward and bring us together.
And together, we're on a journey towards the future of energy.
So what will it look like?
It's hard to say, but we know it will be sustainable and abundant.
We're already on our way.
With a common purpose, each of us playing our part.
At Deloitte, we're connecting every bright mind, every organization, every startup, every innovator.
Every citizen, CEO, and regulator.
Making this future happen won't be easy, so we're developing practical solutions.
And a clear roadmap to help our clients on their way.
We'll keep making those connections.
Each step well planned, moving forward together.
To make our new energy future a reality. Let's connect for a new energy future.
I'm Tomasz Pelc, and I'm the head of the board of the Technology Cluster, Hydrogen Cluster, that is the main organizer of today's conference. Good morning, I'm Marek Foltynowicz, and I'm an expert in the Hydrogen Technology Cluster, and also program board member. So if something should go wrong, please make sure that you find me. Yes, this is the person that is responsible for content of the conference, but not for the schedule. This year's Hydrogen Conference has the slogan of hydrogen technologies is the basis for economy development. We are very proud that the conference has been inscribed as one of the events accompanying the European Hydrogen Week, the most important event related to hydrogen that will happen between the 24th and the 28th of October in Brussels. So we can say that today Gdynia is the most important city in Poland where we will discuss hydrogen economy. Hydrogen economy that is of utmost importance, that will constitute the solid basis for our future development. Owing to our cooperation with the European Commission, we stand a chance to, in 2050, be able to boast a zero-emission economy. This is our fifth conference already, let me emphasize that, our fifth hydrogen-related conference. We are back to Gdynia, where we started 5 years ago, and here we are again. Marek, there is a certain issue because we've got younger colleagues that are going to be replacing us slowly, so we will not return to the full model from 5 years ago. Anyhow, the conference of ours initiated every time something new that was later developed in Poland. It is during our conference. Well, first of all, we held the first hydrogen conference here in Gdynia in 2018. In 2019, we signed an agreement concerning the Pomeranian Hydrogen Valley. It is at this conference that we talked about the first railway connection based on hydrogen-driven railways, Highway to Hell. This is our brand that hopefully we'll be able to implement in practice and be able to boast that such trains are operating. But today we are going to talk about further new initiatives that, again, in Gdynia, within the realms of our conference, will be announced. So we invite you to listen carefully, to follow our panels. Our panels will be interwoven with discussions. There will be technical sessions as well. But I would like to invite you to bearing with us until the end of the conference, till the last panel that is going to be moderated by Tomek, and it will be devoted to what is most important, so to the potential role of hydrogen in replacing other energy carriers, those fossil ones. We're going to discuss things that are really new about this pinch of craziness that we can implement here in the Pomeranian region, provided we and our environment wishes to change. But let's start with official speeches. I would like to invite the host of the city of Gdynia. Welcome all cordially, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great joy and honor to be able to be hosting a hydrogen conference here in our city. When I go back to the initial first debates, first meetings that took place a few years ago, still before the first hydrogen conference, when I met President we all had this conviction back then that we were entering this new intriguing area in which a lot of experts, visionaries, were gaining awareness of a certain target direction. But I need to admit that it was only with time that the determination appeared concerning certain urgent activities that should be taken and that would focus on the use of hydrogen in economy and how it would impact the operations of local governments, among others. So the huge potential had to still be discovered, and we had to learn what use cases could be provided to inspire others. I would like to thank President Pelc for these inspirations, because they still drive us, and they can be an element confirming that a number of steps taken over, particularly last year's, like establishing the cluster, were significant and meaningful. I would like to thank Marshal Leszek Bonna, because cooperation with the voivodeship authorities was a model one. I would like to thank Port of Gdynia authorities as well that joined in, seeing how many elements of the functioning of hydrogen economy constitute the future of the port as well. That it is the hydrogen-related technologies that become important in our discussions about the fuels of the future. It also concerns seaborne transport. It is important, it is worthwhile, and it's important to cooperate and see the potential of this element. The last elements made us aware of the fact that hydrogen is not just a matter of a vision, environment, economy, but it is also about the geopolitical strategy, energy safety, broadly understood economy. I think we all understand that it is necessary to accelerate certain actions and activities taken with relation to hydrogen. It is the role of this conference to take up a debate on not only the potential opportunities offered by the implementation of hydrogen technology, but also how it can enter our everyday lives. We started particular activities, and there is the first hydrogen station now in the region that is going to be launched in Chatzimarkakis, in our city next year. We are also getting ready and analyzing the issues of using the urban transport, again, based on hydrogen. Of course, today the economic situation of local governments in Poland is distorted. We have a dramatic budget-related situation. We need to be super careful about any decision that we make. But we are all deeply convinced and aware of the fact that a lot of work has been performed already, but still there is a lot to be done. And the vision of benefiting from hydrogen is becoming more tangible than the one we had a few years ago before we open up this discussion. I wish you very fruitful debates, very practical, pragmatic ideas that we will try to implement every day in the structures that we are involved in. Thank you very much. One has to say that it is in Gdynia in 2018 that the first letter of intent was signed concerning the idea of implementing public tasks concerning hydrogen buses. The Pomeranian region is doomed to succeed in terms of hydrogen economy, hydrogen technologies. The question is whether we will be in a position to make the most of this potential, and I think that it is the host of the entire area that will give us an answer. I would like to welcome you warmly here in Gdynia, and I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to today's conference. Out of necessity, I will have to repeat the main thoughts that were shared by the mayor of the city of Gdynia, because we all realize what the situation is currently. But we do realize that in today's geopolitical situation, there is no other option. We need to reach for renewable energy sources. And this is for two reasons. First of all, our motivation is to get independent from Russia. And the other is that we need to take care of our natural environment. This is our duty that we owe future generations. This is why here in the Pomeranian region we are aware of the fact that we need to reach for the energy from the sun, from biomass, biogas, or wind energy. But one of the important aspects of transformation going on in our region is also reaching for the potential offered by hydrogen-related technologies. And these are not just empty words, because we gave an example of a strategy of the development of the Pomeranian voivodeship until 2030. In this strategy, we make it very clear that it is necessary to bring together offshore wind and hydrogen. Let me also remind you that regional government and hydrogen technology cluster established the Pomeranian Hydrogen Valley, whose goal is initiating cooperation between entities that will focus on the implementation of particular projects. What is more, in 2021, the Pomeranian Voivodeship entered a sectoral agreement for hydrogen economy initiated by the Ministry of Climate and Environment. And again, let me remind you that a similar agreement was also joined by us, but this time concerning offshore wind energy. The planned development of offshore wind farms on the Baltic Sea creates a unique opportunity for the Pomeranian region to become the forerunner and leader in the production of green hydrogen with the use of electrical energy of the offshore wind farms. That is why we believe that hydrogen and the offshore wind energy should become the factor making the Pomeranian region stand out. The regional authorities are there to support and initiate the development of new technologies that will accelerate decarbonization, that will enhance the efforts towards the protection of the environment, but also will support the economic development, which is likely to translate onto the improving living standards. But today, given the war in Ukraine, given the inflation levels and uncertainty concerning the pace of economic growth, a number of interesting projects are at a risk. Gdańsk and Gdynia have been testing hydrogen buses. We think about making railway connections hydrogen-based. We also consider introducing hydrogen to ferries and vessels. We know that Hydrogen Technology Cluster has developed a technology that will make it possible to generate hydrogen on the sea and fuel service ships for offshore wind farms with it. So these ideas are around, but this hard time makes us face trouble that we couldn't have predicted. The Polish order, war in Ukraine, skyrocketing inflation, a lot of unknowns concerning the pace of the economic growth. All these factors make those important projects that we would expect to speed up come to a halt and wait for a better moment. And it is on this pessimistic note that I will turn to you now, asking you to make this conference sound optimistic and its outcomes to be optimistic too. And this is my wish to you. Thank you very much, Mr. Marshal. Mr. Marshal has partly introduced us into the panel that I will have a pleasure of moderating at the end of the conference, because our theses are somewhat different to what we've heard at the end of Mr. Marshal's contribution. Anyway, we wouldn't have a conference today that yesterday showed how boldly we can act, because maybe you cannot see it now, but the room was packed with people. Had it not been for the support of the European Commission, now I would like to invite head of the European Commission representation in Poland. I'm very happy that as the European Commission representation in Poland, we can also be a strategic partner this really important event. We are meeting today at a conference that is business-oriented. We hear a lot about technologies, but as the other speakers have already mentioned, we cannot hold these talks in isolation from the political context within which we operate. Yesterday, I took part in a few panels within the Warsaw Security Forum. This is a political Karpacz-like event that is held every year in Warsaw, and a very important topic of that conference that brought together many ministers of foreign affairs, ministers of energy and climate, representing almost all the EU member states, was the issue of energy blackmail exercised by Russia and the ways of counteracting it. Everybody agreed that energy transformation and supporting renewable energy sources is not a whim of a leftist ideology, as it is often presented like in Poland by different sources, but rather it is the case of economic and political necessity. Many speakers, unfortunately, notice that following the geopolitical winter, what will come will be the geopolitical spring. You mentioned that optimistic notes are needed. I hope that definitely we will hear a lot of them during the conference. But as of today, the situation is really very serious. A lot depends on the decisions of EU member states in terms of their energy policy. It is on how they survive winter, whether they will go beyond their national egoisms. These are the factors on which the shape of the European Union will depend, the shape of its economy, its financial status, the financial standing of the citizens. Our neighbor, Ukraine, has been defending its territory for many months against the military aggression of Russia. The European Union, ever since the beginning of this conflict, has been standing hand in hand with Ukraine, supporting it financially in humanitarian ways and legally. Of course, this financial support is not provided as fast as we would wish to. Out of €9.5 million, only half the resources have been transferred to Ukraine, but Ukraine needs money badly in order to be able to pay not only its soldiers, but also to pay pensions, to pay administration officers, to make the country survive. Ukraine joined the group of countries wishing to join the EU family. We've been organizing more and more transit visits of commissioners that through Rzeszów, through Helm, go to Kiev or Lviv. And this support of the European Commission is very strong. We see EU officers pay frequent visits to Ukraine to get Ukraine ready for its membership in the European Union. In the meantime, owing to different activities and decisions taken by the European Commission and the European state ministers for environment and climate, we've managed to reduce the input of gas from Russia from 40 to 14%. So already now we can say that certain successes can be boasted about, and the German minister, Ms. Baerbock, during the security forum in Warsaw, made it clear that Germany, for many months, have been changing their policy quite substantially. So far, German economy has heavily relied on importing cheap gas from Russia. This has come to an end. Right after the beginning of the invasion in March this year, the European Commission presented an outline of a plan of making the European Union states independent of fossil fuels from Russia via diversification of supplies, energy savings, and the improvement of energy efficiency. Repower EU is the name of this plan, and that is the response to the need of complementing and upgrading the Green Deal in relation to the current geopolitical situation and Russian aggression. The ministers for energy are holding talks in order to find a common answer and response to the climate crisis. They come to an agreement and reach consensus in many issues. In others, like those concerning gas prices, it is hard to reach this consensus. And this stems from the fact that various countries of the EU and their economies rely on varying sources of energy. Some are more atom dependent, others are more coal dependent. It's a hard situation, but the ministers for energy have started meeting ever more frequently. Also, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, in her speech mid-September, presented a number of suggestions concerning energy-saving possibilities in peak demand hours or taxation of energy power concerns. And these proposals of the European Commission are now being discussed at the Forum of Ministers of Energy, as here there has to be a consent of all the EU member states. There has to be a compromise. We cannot lead to a situation in which differences across different EU member states get deepened further on. That is why the European Commission is taking a close look at the state aid provided by particular states. For example, 200 billion euro that the German government has now allocated to supporting its inhabitants and economy in relation to the energy crisis. The EU Repower plan, as I said, envisages diversification of supplies, coordinated fuel savings, so that we don't run short of it during winter time.
The Repower plan also foresees replacement of Russian gas and gas generally through green alternatives and increasing energy efficiency, which will allow to decrease energy consumption and replacement with areas of fossil fuels, thanks to electrification of transport and heating, and thanks to the so-called decarbonized gases, that is bioethane and renewable hydrogen. In these areas of economy and technology, when we still need gas molecules, for example, as material for production of steel or fertilizers, or as fuel for long-distance transport. The plan is quite ambitious. According to the calculations of the EU, until 2030, we should build capability to produce 10 million tons of green hydrogen annually, and obtain the possibility of importing 10 million tons of green hydrogen. The EU plans to install electrolyzers of total power of 30 gigawatts. Currently, we're at the beginning of the road. At this stage, production consumption of green hydrogen is very low because it is not an attractive option for business due to a lack of technical solutions for production of green hydrogen in amounts which would be necessary to maintain industrial production. On the other hand, lack of demand limits technological research in that area. Obtaining the goals will require a lot of work. The most important task is to create a friendly environment for investing into green hydrogen, which includes clear strategic framework, stable regulations, and appropriate financial mechanisms, both at the EU level and national levels. This was also one of the reasons why Madame von der Leyen mentioned in her speech the creation of a special financing mechanism meant exclusively for hydrogen, that is creation of a new investment bank for hydrogen with the capital of 3 billion euro. The funds will be obtained from the EU Fund of Supporting Innovation and other sources. Exact elements of the initiative will probably be known only in next year. The main goal of creation of such a bank is covering the costs of risk suffered by business when entering this new green hydrogen project. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that we're not going to have green hydrogen if we're not going to support the development of alternative clean energy sources, mostly energy obtained from wind and solar sources. As part of structural funds, first programs of which have already been approved by the EU and which should be initiated quite soon, as well as from means from the National Reconstruction Fund. We have a lot of funds, tremendous funds meant for investments into RAS, into renewables. Among them, for example, also funds for thermal insulation of buildings. Of course, it's quite dramatic for Poland that this National Reconstruction Plan, due to changes of opinion between Commission and the EU, has not been started. It's a very important plan for the Polish economy. It's also very important for the development of the Polish energy sector because it includes key projects in this area, and both Mr. President and Deputy Marshal mentioned that basically the budgets of regional governments are empty because the prices of energy are going up so quickly that the self-governments simply don't have the money for investment. So in this situation, you have the possibility to receive in forms of grants or loans, funds. It's definitely a matter of state urgency to find agreement between Polish government and European Commission as quickly as possible when it comes to funds from the National Recovery Plan. But that's all from me. Thank you very much for the initiative of organizing the conference. In the next panel, which will be led by my colleague, our expert, Elizabeth Zygmunt, will be able to find the plans of the European Commission here more closely. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Madam Director. On the 8th of July 2020, the hydrogen strategy was announced, the European hydrogen strategy, which Madam Director has mentioned. And one of the plans was that in Ukraine, there was supposed to be allocated 10% of electrolyzers, which were to produce green hydrogen for the needs of the EU. And I must say that in cooperation with the Hydrogen Association Ukraine, next year our conference will be international because we'll be doing it together with our friends from Ukraine. And I invite you to that conference right away because we'll be talking about how to connect this community of interests between Ukraine and Poland, which is being constructed, being built on various levels in various fields. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're familiar with the 3W initiative of the Bank Gospodarstwa Krajowego. It's an initiative which goes very far as zero emissions and green energy. And thanks to the fact that Bank Gospodarstwa Krajowego decided to be our gold sponsor, I've also like to ask the representative of the bank, Adam Żelezik, to tell us a few words about it. I'm delighted that the Bank Gospodarstwa Krajowego can be a partner of such an important initiative, which is today's hydrogen conference. The topic is of great importance to our bank, and this stems from the mission of the bank itself, because as you know, it's a very unique institution. It's a Polish development bank, which has a mission of supporting social and economic development of our country. And one of the tools that we want to provide to support such development is the 3W initiative. 3W in Polish, woda, wodór, węgiel, that is water, hydrogen, coal. We shouldn't perhaps speak about coal too much, but we're talking about coal in non-energy applications, about nanotechnology. And we are convinced that these three resources, water, hydrogen, and coal, these are three pillars on which the future of our civilizations will be based on, because I'm sure you're aware that access to water is extremely important. We're all victims of either surplus or insufficient quantities of water. We all remember about our polluted rivers in the summertime. So the topic of water is extremely important. However, these three resources are not functioning in a vacuum. These are not silos. So in our view, what makes our initiative different is the synergy and interdependence of these three resources, because even if we go back to the area of hydrogen economy, a very simple example of synergy can be made, because today a very widespread technology of large-scale hydrogen production is electrolysis, and nobody needs to be convinced about that. However, it's a truism, of course, that water is necessary, but the water has to be properly profiled. And here we have carbon nanotechnology, coal-based nanotechnology, which can help us. In Tri-City, we have a startup, NanoSync, which developed technology of desalination of marine water using graphene nets, nanocarbon nets, where we don't really use electrical energy. It's a gravitational flow, and we basically can profile the water to whatever physicochemical parameters we want. That's why nanocarbon technologies definitely have application here, and they don't end here. If we talk about electrolysis, for example, coupling electrolytes with layers of graphene or nanocarbon can definitely improve the parameters of electrolysis processes. And there is more. We have hydrogen, we have to store it, obviously, and today hydrogen storage tanks of 5th generation, single layer ones without separators and so on, are being produced in the technology of carbon fibers. And of course, coal also has application pretty much everywhere. If you take a look around, we can see that nanotechnologies also have use here, and we have the hydrogen stored, and it needs to be sent further, or it has to be used, and that is changed into electrical energy. And here nanotechnologies can also have application, for example, in fuel cells. Furthermore, and in fact, going back to the leading thought of our conference, that is renewables, we know how to produce the energy. We are talking about offshore here. We are talking about large production powers, but this energy has to be transmitted, has to be sent. Now, has any of you thought about using nanotechnologies for transmission lines, to make transmission lines using carbon fibers or using carbon technologies, which have incredible capabilities as far as their electro technology, very low losses, very low weight, huge resistance, much greater than conventional technology. So far, we haven't really been dealing with that subject. It was more of a science fiction area, but today the geopolitical situation we're in, which has been mentioned, makes us take a harder look at these topics from a different point of view. Today we have this unique moment when all these technologies, which were on a shelf because they were not economically viable, today can become these golden growls of our economy. That's why, and without getting over time, hopefully, I'd like you to keep in mind during today's conference, to keep in mind, in addition to hydrogen, to think also of water and of carbon nanotechnology. And in our view, and the view of our bank and the 3W initiative, this is going to be the future of our economy, and we're going to provide appropriate conditions to develop these technologies, a proper ecosystem, an ecosystem which we're already creating, because we have created this interdisciplinary innovation center, a number of academia, technical universities joined this unique center. We are creating also a 3W economy, which will support interaction and connecting various parties, various interest groups. We're talking here about the world of business, about the world of science, about the public sector. Therefore, I encourage you to take a wider look at hydrogen, at renewables, through the prism of these two other resources, which are so crucial. Thank you very much, and I wish you a great conference. Thank you. And last but not least, to wrap up this part of the conference, I'd like to ask Sławomir Halbryt, President of the Regional Economic Chamber of Pomorskie. Without Sławomir, we wouldn't have the cluster. If there were no cluster, there would be no conference today. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Regional Economic Chamber of Pomorskie, coordinator of the hydrogen technology sector. By the way, at the beginning, we had a different name. We were called Cluster of Hydrogen Technologies and Clean Carbon Technologies. We've made a decision to concentrate on carbon, but I think that cooperation with the circles that are engaged in carbon technology is going to be very close to us, definitely. Now, welcoming you to the 5th edition of the conference, I'd like to say that this conference of ours has, well, for a number of editions, been of international character. Furthermore, we've learned through the time of pandemic to organize the conference also in a completely remote manner. Our conference are successful because this way of presenting our topics, the issues which are being discussed, being presented through direct participation, also through the possibility of watching us online, has proven itself. We have hundreds of people who have joined us remotely in previous editions and these editions, also from abroad. The conference is being also interpreted simultaneously into English and from English into Polish. So the challenges ahead of organizing such an international organization have already been tested out and verified by us. I'd like to thank very much, first of all, Mr. President, for hosting us here in Gdynia in this beautiful center, where once again we are organizing our event. I'd like to thank all our partners who have supported our conference. Our partners can be seen here on the slide. On the screen, I'd like to thank the representative of the European Commission for taking the main patronage of our conference. This is very important for us. This shows that our conference is in line with the policy being created by the European Commission, and we want to be this extension and this power, this force that promotes these changes, introduces measures connected with introduction of hydrogen technology in Poland. I'd like to thank all the panelists, all the moderators who yesterday and today have presented and are going to present today. Our experts put a lot of heart, a lot of passion, there is a lot of knowledge that they share with us. So experts are sharing knowledge with other experts. Yesterday we had already seen what great value our panels, our discussions can bring. I'd like to thank the members of the cluster for being engaged in organizing the conference. In the cluster at this point, we have over 50, nearly 60 members. These are companies, these are self-governments, these are social organizations, civil organizations, which are very much interested in implementation of hydrogen technologies. We're not talking about just applications of hydrogen technologies. We're also talking about how this technology could function within society. And we have certain experiences in the chamber when it comes to social dialogue, and we do think that hydrogen technologies in the future will require such additional social support. I'd like to thank the chamber's team and the team of the chamber as well, of the cluster as well, for organizing the event. It's been a tremendous effort. The team is rather modest, but very active, very efficient, very professional. And we can see that in today's conference and the quality of today's conference. Now, just to make you aware what sort of event it is and how much work it requires as far as organization of it, I'd like to mention that parallelly to today's conference, as part of the meeting that we have today and we had yesterday, we have a number of other events taking place parallelly. Among others, beneficiaries of the H2 Global projects are meeting here, the European project which allows for exchange of experiences when it comes to hydrogen technologies between companies in Europe. We have these representatives here. So parallelly, we have meetings of these companies, these beneficiaries, and we will also have the signing of two letters of intention for regarding cooperation. So we have concrete, tangible effects of our activity, not just on part of the cluster, but the entire movement supporting the development of hydrogen technology. This demonstrates that companies want to cooperate, do cooperate with each other. I think that today's conference will also encourage creation and signing of more agreements like that. Will encourage further cooperation in near future. I wish you great success, and I wish you a wonderful conference. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. After this official part, we'll have yet another official part. Unfortunately, our guests had to record their speeches. At this point, I'd like to invite you to the audience. And in the so-called meeting, I'll have to tell you why I have to tell you why you had to drop the name, this carbon in the name, because when we entered hydrogen in Europe, it was difficult to explain to our European colleagues why we connect hydrogen with carbon. At the beginning of the next part, the floor will be taken by the Deputy Minister Ireneusz Zyska, which is the Plenipotentiary of the Polish government when it comes to renewables.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to the opening of the Polish Conference on Hydrogen Technologies Gdynia 2022. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to participate in this very important event. At the same time, I regret that owing to prior commitments, I am not able to be with you in person. This year, we've been celebrating 200th anniversary of Ignacy Łukasiewicz's birth, an entrepreneur and inventor, a pioneer of mining industry in Europe. His discoveries and inventions concerning the purification of crude oil, among others, and ever since his birth and activity, the world has changed considerably. Today, we start moving away from using natural crude oil and other fossil fuels. As never before, we're now in need of new Łukasiewiczes who will point the new innovative ways of developing the economy. Today, we are meeting here among the forerunners of the new industry, the industry based on hydrogen. We have a common vision of how to use hydrogen in different sectors of economy so as to strengthen the competitiveness and innovativeness of the Polish economy. Last year was a milestone reached on the way towards building hydrogen-related economy in Poland. All the goals have been met. In November 2021, the Council of Ministers adopted Polish hydrogen strategy until 2030, with the prospects of expanding it until 2040, and a few years earlier, on the 14th of November 2021, the first European or global sector agreement was signed for the development of hydrogen technology. The signatories of this act are the representatives of government administration, entrepreneurs, industry representatives, business environment, financial institutions, insurance institutions, as well as Poland's best R&D institutes and universities. The basic goal behind the sectoral agreement that gathered together 250 entities from Poland and abroad is the development of the new sector of economy, where special emphasis is put on developing the local content, that is the Polish content, starting from technologies through their implementation and commercialization, through to the construction of a strong innovative business and the full value chain in which the Polish companies will have a stable and strong market position. Implementing these goals would not be possible without many milieux getting engaged. An important role is played here by the host of today's conference, that is Pomeranian, a hydrogen technologies cluster that for many years has been implementing R&D projects related to the use of hydrogen in economy, and acts proactively towards implementing investment projects related to it. Appreciating the commitment of the Pomeranian Hydrogen Technology Cluster, I can notice with satisfaction that in Poland many new initiatives were created related to the development of hydrogen technology. It is a success that 6 valleys were created: Pomeranian, Podkarpacie, Wielkopolska, Dolna Śląska, Mazowiecka, and Śląska Małopolska hydrogen valleys. New initiatives are being created, both at the level in the form of valleys, clusters, and hubs related to hydrogen. That creates the Polish ecosystem of hydrogen economy. The rate at the stake here is the competitiveness of Polish enterprises through lowering of the emissions and applying innovative technologies, particularly in industry, transport, heating, power engineering, and a gradual independence gaining from fossil fuels. That translates into the increase of energy security that is so important, particularly today. That coincides with intersectoral agreement that is increasing the share of local content along the entire value chain, and the use of hydrogen in economy, and building of a well-structured and well-crafted market with the right support and regulatory provisions that will make it possible to build competitive advantage by the Polish enterprises in their operations within international markets. Legislative initiatives have been already taken whose goal is to introduce provisions that will be favorable towards the development of hydrogen-related economy. At the moment, the most important legislative project is the so-called Hydrogen Constitution. That is the package of acts and executive provisions whose goal is to introduce the public aid system, among others, so as to support the production of zero-emission hydrogen. That will make it possible to realize projects based on world-based top-class competences and technologies in the area. It will also make it possible to develop well-paid positions and gradual shifting of employment to the newly created sector of economy. The production of hydrogen from the surplus of energy from renewable energy sources will favorably impact the stabilization of the power engineering system with increasing share of RES. It will also contribute to the building of energy storage system and reaching EU and national climate-related goals. I'm very sure that today's conference, in which so many outstanding experts participate, will become a valuable platform for experience and knowledge exchange in the area of hydrogen technologies and the construction of a new economy sector, that is, hydrogen economy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me greet all the participants of the conference. I wish you passionate, fruitful discussions. Thank you very much. The first national organization in Poland made us also the members of Hydrogen Europe, and that is why today we have a few words from Jorgo Chatzimarkakis, who is the CEO of Hydrogen Europe.
My name is Jorgo Chatzimarkakis, CEO of Hydrogen Europe, and it's an honor and a pleasure for me to address this meeting. Dear Mayor of Gdynia, Mr. Szczurek, dear Marshal of the province of Pomerania, Mr. Struk, it's really important for me to underpin how much we support Tomasz Pelc in doing and initiating this important project called Neptune. Hydrogen is on its way, and so is Poland with regards to hydrogen. And this is important for us, as there is sometimes this idea that hydrogen splits Europe into the ones who think they have it and they are advanced, and the ones who think they don't. And it's a wrong approach. Hydrogen will only flourish in Europe and become a tool for the energy transition all over Europe if we do it together in all geographies and with different technologies. Especially after the unprecedented and yet intolerable invasion of Russia into Ukraine and the attacks that happen in the Baltic Sea, we need to be careful, and we need to understand that in the future, resilience and the security of supply of energy will be important factors much more than ever before. Polish representatives always warned Europe not to become too dependent on one energy carrier, and especially not to become dependent on Russia. Poland was always right in this respect, and this is why it's so important that this project here in Poland, and especially Neptune, bring your country into the center of the hydrogen development and bring it prominently on the map of European hydrogen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a fact that if we want to replace Russian gas and we want to replace also fossil energy, we need to look more into renewable energies. Renewable energies with their intermittency have one issue. It's difficult to store them unless you use hydrogen as a storage capacity. And that's exactly the strength of the province of Pomeranian and of Poland. It's blessed by nature with lots of caverns, and especially salt caverns, that are a perfect way out for the uptake of renewables. Because salt caverns are proved and tested carriers for storage of renewable hydrogen, and not to forget also other forms of clean hydrogen, because I also believe that pyrolysis as another technology will play a role in the Polish economy, in the Polish energy transition, being less mature than electrolysis, but also being cheaper because it consumes less energy. But here we talk about two factors. One is electrolysis. If we want really to replace oil and gas and also coal by renewables and by hydrogen, we need electrolysis. This is a technology where Europe is still leading. And I can also say we can only get and achieve our targets if we ramp up dramatically the production of electrolyzers all over Europe. And I would like to invite Poland, being already strong in hydrogen technologies like buses, to also contribute here in the production of electrolyzers all over Europe. We need to ramp up by a factor of more than 100 if we want to achieve the big targets that I will allude to. The second part in this project is the maritime perspective. We are about to decarbonize the maritime industry, the ports, but also shipping as such. And here hydrogen has been discovered as a way out. It is used and will be used in ships in form of pure hydrogen or liquid hydrogen. and also in form of methanol, like recently announced by the world's biggest shipper, Mars from Denmark, or ammonia. Also, ammonia can be burned in a combustion engine in long haul, so to say, long distances with a two-stroke engine. What I want to say is you are at the moment in this project quite advanced and in a leading role when testing also maritime applications, and I would like to congratulate you to that. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union is up for a big change. We have subscribed ourselves to the European Green Deal. One could also say the European Clean Deal, because not all the technologies that will lead to decarbonization are only and exclusively renewable. However, the targets that we have set there are clear. The targets are that in the year 2030, nearly 6% of all fuels, namely 5.7%, need to be hydrogen-based. That was the decision of the European Parliament quite recently. It's currently in the discussion of the three parties that do laws in Europe. So the Council, member states represented by the Czech Republic at the moment, by the European Parliament and by the Commission. And also another target was decided, namely 50% of all hydrogen used in chemical plants, in the chemical industry, needs to be replaced by green hydrogen. So all in all, together, this makes up to 10 million tons of green hydrogen production per year. And this is remarkable because we need to get to these targets. And here we have an idea. The idea was raised by Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and she said it could be a hydrogen bank that buys this amount and resells it to a lower price. Why are we doing that? In order to get things done, in order to get the market started. So basically, this bank would play the role of a market maker by giving the clear signal that this 10 million tons will be bought, purchased anyhow. And this is exactly the timeline for the next months. We are about indeed to build up this bank. We are about to complement and to finalize the regulations that we need in order to get there. And then the hydrogen economy, not slowly, but fast starts, because other economies in the world, like the US, like Australia, and more also India, South Africa, are putting up schemes that are like a vacuum cleaner. They take the initiatives from other countries and the investments into their country, especially the Anti-Inflation Act or the Inflation Reduction Act that has been initiated by the US. This is why we need to go the next step. And this project, Neptune, is one of these next steps. I'm very, very happy, and congrats to Thomas Pelz again, to see this project being on the rail, on the road, and on the sea. I have to tell you that in my team, there's a gentleman from your region, Grzegorz Pavelec, who is the mastermind who calculates all these elements. And he, of course, is a strong force in our Hydrogen Europe team. Without him, all these elements that we have pushed forward the last years would not have been possible. So in our policy, there's a strong part of Gdynia, of the province of Pomeranian, but also of Poland. That's Europe. I'm super happy to see this going. I'm extremely pleased to have been invited by you. I would have liked to be today with you. It's not possible, but I'm sure in a short time I will be able to visit this important project, this important part of Europe. Dziękuję bardzo. Cześć.
Jesteśmy największą metropolią w Polsce Północnej. Jesteśmy otwarci na to, co nowe. Jesteśmy świetnym miejscem do życia. Jesteśmy Trójmiastem i dlatego zawsze będziemy dbać bardziej.
Korki na wszystkich drogach dojazdowych do Trójmiasta już dawno przekroczyły akceptowalny poziom. Dlatego samorząd województwa pomorskiego uruchomił nową linię kolejową łączącą metropolię trójmiejską z Kaszubami. Dzięki podróży pociągiem tysiące osób może szybciej i wygodniej dojechać do pracy, szkoły lub na zakupy, a potem wrócić do domu. Nie trać czasu i pieniędzy w korkach. Podróżuj szybko i wygodnie koleją. Do pracy, do szkoły, na zakupy.